Just like that.
Welcome back to the Intrynsic podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. That wasn't as cool as yours, I gotta say, but yeah.
Hey, something different. We gotta try new things, all right? Welcome back, everybody. My name is Omar.
And my name's Juan.
And we're back at it again with another great episode. Talking about a little bit of some access in life today. AKA trim the fat.
Why do you call it
down.
that?
I don't know. That's all I got in my head right now.
Why do you like that phrase? I noticed that you like certain phrases where you're just like, that's the phrase. Trim the fat, and you had what was it? Balls off the wall or something like that.
Balls off the wall.
Yeah.
No, it's balls to the wall.
Oh yeah, there you go. My bad. I was thinking of Vans.
You were thinking of Vans. I don't know. I guess it's just the creative juices in me, trying to make connections in life. Or maybe that just, I don't know. These things
No,
just
he's
stick
really
with me.
thinking about it.
Yeah, well, like, remember, like, right now I was just, like, singing to you the song about J.G. Wentworth?
Yeah.
Free promo, free ad. 877 Cash Now, and it's got the whole jingle. Like, I've never used their services, but I will literally live and die with that quote in my mind.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. That's just how life works.
How many do you know, like, from other restaurants? I know
Restaurants?
Arby's, we got the meat. Yeah, you know, like their slogans.
Oh.
We got the meat.
McDonald's.
Have it your way. Subway.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Oh, yeah. Oh, I totally forgot about that, actually. I don't know why. I just forgot about that.
That's all I can actually remember right now. I mean,
what's Burger King one?
I was literally thinking of Burger King right now. I'm like,
have it your way? I think it's have it your way. Yeah.
Didn't you say that for Subway?
No, that's did I? No. Anyways.
Goes to show you how much Juan goes to fast food restaurants.
I don't, but non-disclosure agreement. It's okay, actually. My job deals with a lot of those clients, so I actually didn't know Jimmy John's still existed. I thought they died out.
What the hell is that?
Exactly. You know why though? And I noticed this when I moved to Arizona. A lot of the restaurants that we have here, or rather a lot of restaurants that the country has, we don't have. But all of those restaurants are like fast food, frankly, disgusting food. Like we don't have Jimmy John's. We just got a Sonic here, but we've never had a Sonic here. Also, what's the other one? Buffalo Wild Wings. We don't have that here. We have, was it Wingstop, which is trash, by the way. Anyone can catch these hands if you disagree. Yeah, that's pretty much it. A couple other ones, but I know
you guys got Chick-fil-A?
Whataburger. Yeah, we do have Chick-fil-A, yeah. And In-N-Out, thankfully. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Honestly, I don't really care much for fast food, but In-N-Out, Chick-fil-A.
Pizza.
To have those in my town, or at least within the 2-mile radius proximity, I'll be all right.
Pizza. What?
Yeah, pizza too. I'm actually on a diet right now from pizza, and I made a bet with my mom.
Strictly no pizza diet.
For now, I mean, it'll turn into something else, but for now, got to start somewhere, right?
True.
Where are we? And that's actually. Yeah, that's actually bringing us back to the podcast after our little ramble there. That's part of the inspiration for this episode, because I'm personally trying to remove certain excess from my life. And for me, that comes in the form of foods, excess food. But at the same time, you guys could also relate to this in terms of like having excess materialistic things, excess clothes, excess knickknacks. I was just telling Juan right before we started recording that I would have clients that would buy a lot of the stuff that is sold as seen on TV, which is like a huge market, because there's a lot of people that are literally just sitting at home on the couch watching TV all day. And what comes on as a commercial? Hey, you could have this brand new ShamWow, and it's like, everybody's like, oh, wow, the towel that does it all, or the one like tool that can, fit any socket, and like people just eat it up. And then next thing you know, like have a stack of these things at home that they'll never use, still in the packaging, and they're useless. They're as good as like a toy, basically, because they will not do anything that they really need to do. ShamWow maybe being a slight exception, because I think I got the off-brand version and it was a good towel, but at the end of the day, it's just still a towel. You know, it's not a magic towel. So yeah, I mean, I think we kind of touched on this like when we're first starting the podcast. You know, I guess trying to stay away from distractions, and some distractions come in the form of having excesses in life, right? You know, for anybody that's dealing with addictions or like habits, bad habits, it also comes in the form of like having excess whatever that you have a problem with, right? For my fellow alcoholics out there, having excess alcohol, you know, too much of it obviously can be your downfall, as well as any other drug. So really, you know, you could kind of tie this to just about anything, or excess money, Juan.
Sick. Just throw the jab at me. Nice. Well, I'm asking for a raise at my job, so this episode is obviously not my idea. This was all Omar's idea.
Absolutely.
How can we make this guy feel bad about this excess? Let's talk about excess. More money, more problems.
Yeah. Well, you just give away our wow. Very.
See, no one would have known unless you said it.
I knew.
Yeah, I think, I don't know. It's a thing that's weird, because here's a really, I suppose, philosophical question I had in my mind as you were talking, right? Because everyone says like everything in moderation, right? So, if you know, and this of course varies from person to person, but bad food or takeout food in moderation, alcohol in moderation, even like some people like drugs in moderation, you know, like it depends on the person, of course.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying, right? Something in moderation. But the argument is extended to other things, right? Like, let's say even good experiences, like, oh, don't do that too much. Like, focus on this, right? Everything sort of try to achieve a balance. But my question to that has just sort of come up is like, what do you think about, can you have too much happiness? Do you think that's a thing? Like,
oh, you're going all the way, huh?
I don't know. I just thought about that. Like, what about happiness? Happiness is something that anyone out there, right, and us as well, we've spoken about, like, would like to have more of naturally. And let's say you have more of it, and then what if you want more of it? Is there like too much happiness, or is that maybe, you know, maybe like, I don't know, I haven't done these drugs, but maybe is that what like heroin or some of those like super intense drugs feel like? Because it's such a euphoria feeling, it seems like, at least based on like what people say. Like, it's a euphoric, insane feeling where your pretty much nervous system and the whole mind is like overwhelmed and like exploding everywhere. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Well, now you got me started, Juan. Well, here's the thing. I do very much believe in moderation. I think everything is best in moderation. I thought that back in the day before I even actually started trying to implement that in my life, but I heard it once and I'm like, I think this is going to be true to me for my life. And slowly over time, it's become more and more true for me. But now in terms of like happiness, oof.
Yeah, right.
Happiness is something that you can achieve from just about anything. But like I've talked about it before, though, right? True. There's the false hope, you know, the fake happiness that isn't actually true. And what I mean by that, as we've discussed, you know, previously, it's like when you achieve happiness through perhaps a materialistic object that you just purchase for yourself, a nice Gucci belt or, you know, a nice hat or something. You're like, oh, I look so great in this one thing, right? You wear it the first time, it has a huge impact on you, right? Because you just got the perfect outfit for the perfect night that you're going out with the homies. But what's going to happen when you put it in your closet and you don't wear it a second time or a third time? Now it's just there. Does it still achieve the same amount of happiness? No, because that's not true happiness. If we're talking about true internal happiness, that needs a balance. Because as we've said before, if you have something every day it loses its value. It's not as important no more, because if I'm sad, but then I'm happy, but then now I'm angry and this and that, it adds more value to when you are happy, you know?
Yeah, so I'm not talking about like a lack of other feelings. You can have sadness and you can have happiness and you can have fear and all these other emotions. So those will
Mm.
still be there. But imagine you have happiness and then the next time you have even more happiness. Is there like too much happiness? Is that a thing? I don't know the answer, but my estimation is I think there is. I think there is such a thing as too much happiness
Like a
because
peak?
just like with everything else, right? Like you're drinking too much, you're doing too much of this, you're like reading, right? Reading is great. It's super good for your mind, for your vocabulary, for everything. I'm a huge advocate for reading. I also know if you read all the time, you start to become antisocial. You start
Mm-hmm.
to behave differently. Your vocabulary becomes great, but guess what? It also makes it more difficult to socialize with people because you're having to explain vocabulary to people who maybe aren't as educated, right? So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I mean by like something, right? I just took something reading that is great in sort of every possible way. And in the excess, though, it starts to become bad. That's why I'm asking, like, happiness, like I said, no one is going to argue, like, oh, happiness is bad. Happiness is literally the way we define it is good, a good feeling. That's my question. Can you have
Yeah.
too many sort of those good feelings?
Well,
Is
I
there
think
such
of
a
like,
thing where you just have an excess of that?
yeah, well, I think of like happiness, like say in terms of like a scale, like 1 to 10, right? Like if you wake up and you eat your favorite breakfast, right? You know, some bacon, some potatoes in there, and some eggs. It's like, oh yeah, I just had that, on Sunday morning. You get like maybe like a 3 out of 10, right? Good start to your day. But then if you continue to do the things that you want to do that day and only the things that you want to do, yeah, eventually you'll reach that peak. And I think the peak would be like say the 10 or 100%, whatever. But I don't think there will ever be like that much more happiness, if that makes sense. It's like once you reach that peak, you know what that peak feels like, and you can do different things that will allow you to achieve that level of happiness. But it's like that's
You know,
the scale.
I'm finding my answer more and more as I'm thinking. I still stick by my answer and think that there is such a thing as too much happiness. That's why, because you're always going to be chasing for something else that makes you happier. And that
Mm-hmm.
just leads you right off a cliff. Because if you, right, say, like, I'll take my example, right, and I'll be, I mean, I guess vulnerable, just really honest, I guess, of things that make me happy, right? I like to travel, right? So let's say I like to travel. It's funny because we're talking about excess, right? I do like to have more money so that I can travel more. I'm not big into like material possessions, but I suppose I like fashion. So I guess I would buy some clothes. Not really. I mean, I really wouldn't go like on this $1,000 binge of like shopping or anything like that kind. So
Well, you
to
say
me,
that now, but what if you were provided the $1 million that we were talking about not too long ago?
yeah, I would
You might
travel.
actually spend $1,000 on
No,
a
I
on a
would
suit.
travel. 100%
Right, but
would
say that
travel.
you're traveling, and as you're traveling, you also now have the ability to buy clothing in Italy. Now you have the ability to buy clothing in Brazil, different places. You might just spend that $1,000 on a, clothing
But that's
item.
just one thing though, traveling. Because then I also have. Well, I was gonna before you interrupted me, Omar. I was gonna say the things that make me happy. One, travel. Two, helping my family and friends. So additional money would be like, if my sister has like student loans, like, all right, I'll pay that off or some of it off. Um, and then three is it's similar to travel, but just new experiences overall. Doesn't have to be like, usually the new experiences for me come by traveling. You go to a new country, you meet new people, you eat something different, new experiences. So that's just what I
Yeah.
associate with. So for me, let's say from today, like all I do is I prioritize my happiness, right? I'll seek to have more money to travel more, right? So then now I'm traveling, let's say once a month, right? A week out of every month I'm traveling. And I
Okay.
get, let's say, more money, right? So now I have an ability, okay, let's say what Omar said, right? I'll buy some clothes, some good looking clothes, whatever. Before that though, I would have like helped out my family, helped out my sister because No, I'm not the type of guy to just be like, yeah, I'm going to Italy. Bye. See you next month or something. For sure, I'll like help them out. And to me, it's like I will keep going up that ladder, right? Traveling more, seeing new people, meeting new experiences. And here's the thing, that idea right there, like fascinates me. That genuinely makes me happy. Like just thinking about it right now, like that would be crazy. If I'm like, let's say I have more money and I have a yacht and I'm like coasting down the Italy coast. Ooh, happiness over here, out of the camera now, right? Not even in the video anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep going after that, right? I know that my happiness would increase, but to me, I'm starting to become a little worried over here because the things that I'm chasing to be more happy than something else is starting to become a little, you know, unsustainable to me. And at some point there, I see a downtrend. Like you said, you can't have the happiness, you can't have the sun, so to speak, without having the darkness, without having the sadness, without having the fear and frustration. That to me is again, even though like this idea really gets my blood pumping and it gets me excited, it feels like an imperfect picture of actual happiness because you don't have the comparison. You don't have anything coming down. And this is making you sad now, or this is difficult, right? I suppose the only aspect of that would be in obtaining more financial stability, working harder, right? Which again is the reason why I would be interested in like starting my own company. You know, I like the difficulty, but I also do like the reward. So, anyways,
Can I speak now, Juan?
you may speak now. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, but see, even in that scenario of the hypothetical, which will probably become true someday, of like you becoming wealthy and assuming this large mass of money and being able to travel and being able to help your family and friends and do all these great things, right? Even in that scenario, there's still some moderation, right? Because you're not going to be spending all the time and money on just traveling. You're not going to be spending all the time and money on just helping your friends and family. And you won't also be spending all the time and money on work or your business or your company, right? There's moderation within that. And that is the equivalent of a good balance, right? That's kind of like, I guess, what we're trying to talk about, right? Like, even in that scenario, you still have to moderate yourself. You still have to balance yourself, right? Because I remember when I was like younger and like, as I've already talked about in the podcast, I started working with my dad, right? I was like, what, like 13, 14 when I was like in middle school. I had no business having the amount of money that I had, you know, or at least access to it. Now, my dad, I think, had opened a bank account for me, so a lot of it was going to that. But I still had like, I mean, now it's considered pocket change, but at the time, you know, you have $20 in your pocket. Like, what the hell do you need $20 for? Like, when you're at middle school, like
Yeah.
the things that you'll buy there at the most will cost like $5, right? But it's like I was in that point in my life, I had an excess, right? And so what would I do? Like, then I just start buying stuff for people, or I just start buying more stuff that I didn't really need, right? Like more little mini Gatorades or more little fruit snacks, right? And that created a very bad habit for me. Fast forward to like high school, I would go to school, whatever, you know, still also like munch out, spoil myself. But then I go across the street to like this clothing store. Shout out Cinema Old School, cool little store there. And buy like a bunch of t-shirts, like pants and like shoes and all this stuff. And then I'd show up at home. My mom would be like, what the hell are you, what? Like, where'd all this clothes come from? Like, she genuinely thought I stole it. And I'm like, no, I bought it. Right. But it's like, I didn't really need all those things. Right. And that's kind of like the disbalance there. Right. Because I had some money, not a lot of money, really. I had some money. I didn't know what to spend it on. There was no balance. There was no discipline in my life either. So it's like, I immediately just started spending and just buying stuff I didn't need. And that created an excess that I didn't really need. Like right now that I'm trying to become more financially stable and like work on paying off my credit cards and all these things, I must go through at least like 2-3 occasions throughout the week where I think about buying a clothing item and I look at it and I stare at it. Like, and I'm looking at all the angles of it online, you know, I'm like, do I really need it? Do I really need it? I'm like, no, stop. And then I just click away. You know, that's something that I couldn't have done years ago. Like, I would have probably bought it in that instant, right? And then probably regretted it the second that I came home because I'm like, oh, damn, it's too big, or damn, it's too small, whatever, right? But like, that's what I'm talking about, though. It's like a lot of us tend to not be internally happy, right? We're working a dead end job. We're living our life in this cycle that we just really genuinely don't enjoy. You wake up every day, perhaps very early, or some people have two jobs. I was just talking to one of my clients. He's like telling me he has two jobs. He has to go work at like 2 or 3 in the morning. Like that's his first shift. Then he gets off and then basically like goes to his second shift, like around like, what was it, like 2 or 3 in the afternoon, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God. Like, I mean, I've worked 2 jobs in the past, but like, that's like the worst schedule you could possibly have.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that nonstop on repeat, you know, and there's some people that provide for the families. There's some people that provide for others. I understand, but there's other people that are only providing for themselves. And even then they're getting themselves in this cycle. Right. And because they're doing this every day of the week, this one day of the week that they have off, or when it comes to the weekend, oh, I'm going to just spoil myself and then just go to a restaurant and order like 3 plates of food. And then they go to the mall right after, and they buy a handbag and then buy some sunglasses and then like some heels or, you know, some Jordans or whatever.
Yeah.
But those things won't really fulfill you. And at the same time, if you're working that much, you won't really even use those items. They're just going to sit in your closet at home. Right. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Right. It's trying to find happiness through a materialistic object, trying to find happiness through excess in foods or in all that. And it's like trying to put a Band-Aid on the real issue.
Trying to find happiness in other partners too. I mean, like in chasing the best looking girl, chasing the best looking guy, and chasing the best looking person overall, and thinking like, wow, like, right. I mean, I don't know, I'm making this up, but this is like based off of like modern society, like going on IG, like, wow, she has 10,000 like followers. Like, wow, look how good she looks. You know, I'm not going to be as, you know, say all that other vocabulary that guys would say, but
Nice.
you know, very interested, and you chase after, right? It's like to me, it's like literally like a dog chasing after a car. It's like, oh, okay, sorry, slight detour. Did you ever? No, you didn't watch it, right? The Dark Knight. Did you ever watch that?
Batman?
Yeah, the second one with the Joker. Joker literally says this. It's like, I'm like a dog chasing a car, and this is true. He's like, I wouldn't know what to do if I caught it. You know, that's the thing that I'm talking about there. What about when you catch that thing? When you get the girl that you've been looking for your whole life, and it's not really like, again, it's more like a chase and not like a true sort of love story or anything of that kind. It's just like, ooh, she's cute. Yeah, I'm gonna slide in her DMs and I'm gonna do this and do that. And it's like, all right, boom, now you're in a relationship. Now what? Right? Because the whole thing started out of just a need to want someone different, just a need to like, you know, not to like objectify anyone, but like you see something shiny and you're like, ooh, I want that. Right? Both for guys and for girls, and for, you know, people who aren't like people who are non-binary as well. Like chasing after things, I think, is just a bad recipe in anything. Chasing after money, chasing after women, men, chasing after food, chasing after drugs, alcohol, even chasing after like travel. You know, like I love traveling and I know how much I love it, but I know, like I said, see, I even caught myself like in talking about my dreams, talking about traveling more and doing this and sailing down the coast of Italy and stuff. Like that still makes me excited, but I know that like something's missing there. You know, it's too perfect. Like, and maybe it's just like the way that we've been raised, but like I'm always not looking for, but I'm expecting something to not be quite right. You know, it's just, there's no perfection like that I could just achieve all of this and all of a sudden I'm sailing down the coast. And it's like, it's not a doubt that I can do it. It's just that, like we've said in movies, you skip all the middle steps. You skip all the times when you fall and you trip and you fall into depression and you actually hurt yourself and this thing happens and you get back up, but then this happens again. And then all of these trials and tribulations, right? I think people don't realize what it takes to achieve some of these things. And that is something that could really get you into trouble once you start going down that path and you realize, well, I'm working more than I'm getting back. And if the balance isn't there, right, that's, I think, where like a lot of problems come from.
Yeah. To go back to what you were saying about like people chasing the beautiful people, let's call them,
Yeah.
right? That's what you would call a miner because they're mining for diamonds. You know, that's
Yeah.
essentially what you're doing. Which,
Shout out
you know,
Minecraft.
shout out Minecraft. Beat me to the shout out. But that's also subjective too, right? Because beauty is within the eye of the beholder. So if that's your taste, I mean, go
Ooh,
for it. But
that's a
you
good
might soon
quote.
discover that that's not your taste anymore. You know,
Yeah.
taste buds change with time. Keep that in mind, people. If you're chasing that one woman, that one man, or multiple people, I hope you realize that might not be the fantasy that you have in your mind. I've been
Yeah.
there, and I've been very disappointed.
Yeah.
But
I've been there too. It's an interesting thing, right? Because you imagine it. You're like, oh shit, it's gonna be so cool. And this is really when I started. I mean, not that I was ever like, you know, superficial, but like, you know, like you're a kid. You just like see physical and you're like, oh, I'm gonna go in that direction, right? And then, like you said, you're there. You're like, oh, cool, yeah, physical is there, but it's like, for me at least, what I noticed was like, you're not very smart or interesting. I'm okay, you know,
yeah,
like that's something that I didn't think at that time. Again, this was like late high school and early college when I was like doing this, and I was like, okay, cool. Don't want that. Do want this, but with a little bit of this.
yeah. I think it's normal. I think everybody goes through it. Like you know, like we're guys, right? We're going through puberty. Our testosterone's pumping. We don't know what to do. We don't know what it is exactly that we're feeling, but we know that we do feel something, right? And for some reason, when we look at something we like, we just feel it more, right?
Yep.
Um, it's anything in excess, right? Like, because then if you become obsessed with chasing that one girl or that one guy or whatever, it's like you're saying, the chase, right, becomes kind of an issue, right? Because now you're obsessing over it. It's it's strange because within society, we talk about obsession like it's something unhealthy, right? Like it's like psychologically something is wrong with you when you obsess over something because you're chasing that excess essentially, right? You will not do anything because you're eating, you're sleeping, you're you're doing everything around this one thing, right? Whether it's chasing the high, right, that you achieve from a drug or from chasing a partner or from chasing the next business venture, the next adventure in general, right? But it becomes a drug, right? The chase, right?
Mm-hmm.
For some people, it ends when they reach that destination, right? When they reach the high, when they reach the partner, right? And then it kind of slows down a bit, you know, it like subsides. It's like, okay, I worked for it, I got there, not for me. But other people though are truly obsessed, and they're like, no, wasn't good enough. I need to chase the next thing, right? This pretty girl wasn't good enough. I think there's a prettier girl out there. This this high wasn't the highest that I've ever felt. I need to get higher, right? And you go deeper into the abyss, right? But at the same time, whenever you hear of any athlete that's at the very top of the game, like a true professional athlete, that's literally what they tell you. It's like they're obsessed. When like after Kobe passed, there was a lot of documentaries I was like seeing all over the place. Some of them might have been new, some of them had basically just been like released around that time that he was passing. But a lot of the things that they would bring up is whenever he'd be in an interview, he's like, the job's not done, right? Other basketball players saying like, man, I'd be waking up like when it was still dark, like trying to go get some hoops in or trying to go to the gym. Motherfucking Kobe was walking to me or walking past me, like dripping in sweat. And I realized like I was sleeping while he was already working. Right. And that's true obsession. And that obsession does lead to, you know, enormous victories. It leads you to be the top of the top. But is that healthy though? Like, even though you're achieving great success, is that healthy? Because at that point, it's like you've left everything else in your life to the side. You've pushed everything to the side just to focus on that one task. I mean, as you and I know, you only have so much time in the day. I mean, I made a joke about it at the time, right? Like you want an eighth day to work out, right? Yep. That's how we find ourselves when you start getting more and more things to do. And then you realize I'm out of time. I have no more time, right? I can only do so much. But imagine becoming the person that just smooths everything to the side and only focuses on the one thing. And they're obsessed with that night and day, night and day, night and day, weeks, months, years, until, they achieve something enormously like powerful, something great. But at what cost? It's perhaps cost you your family, your livelihood, your friends. You know, it leads you down to very dark places. You know, I don't think maybe they have. I haven't looked into it enough, but maybe that's something that happens to professional athletes, right? Because when they're in the spotlight, it's like that's a high end within itself, right? People are always watching you. People are always buying your merchandise, your jersey,
you
whatever.
Think that's bad?
In a sense, because it's constant praise. You have excess fans.
Not that.
Or what?
The obsession of basketball, the obsession of something. That is a literal. When bringing this back to the topic, that is a literal excess of something. It's an excess of passion for something rather than an excess of a material thing.
Yeah, well, that's literally what I'm saying, because you're only focused on the one thing and you're putting your family aside. You're putting all these other things aside, you know?
I don't think so.
I mean,
that's the one excess to me that I'm comfortable with personally. I am uncomfortable with other excesses. I am comfortable with the excess of work. And I know that sounds like a bad thing, especially because in movies, right, you see the guy that works all the time and he's never with his family, doesn't know his kids, right, really that much. And again, to reiterate, when I say work, I don't just mean work. Like I like my job. I couldn't care less about it, though. In reality, in reference to like my whole overall life, my job is nothing, you know? So when I say work and when I say this obsession with growing and with being different, that to me is not able to be in excess, because you're always adapting and you're always trying to be better. And if you're always doing that, even though you'll trip and even though you'll maybe miss certain events in your family because you're busy over here and you're busy over there, overall as a person, you're doing better. And overall as a person, if you're doing better, then you'll actually make more efforts to be in those practices of your kids in the future. And you'll make an effort to be a better husband if you're in that position. You'll make a better effort to be a better friend, a better brother, all these other things. And that is, I think, an infinite thing that you could do. If we lived for 100 years, 300 years, I think you could do that for all years and never be done, never be satisfied. Have that same job's not done mentality, because again, that is everything.
Yeah, I mean, I could see how that could lead to great achievements. Don't get me wrong. You know, and I know that makes sense to you because you've actually explained that to me before. That's very much in your nature, right? But for me, I lean more towards having a balanced life because I was living on the opposite side of the spectrum. Like always chasing the high, always chasing the good feeling and doing very little or putting in very little effort into actually trying to achieve any actual growth or any success in any other aspect of my life, right? So for me, it's like I'm trying to come back into like the neutral zone, right? It's like, okay, you can have a little fun here and there, but let's not forget we got work to do here. And then, okay, it's the weekend. Try to find some time for yourself or try to go to the gym, work on yourself, right? But I'm trying to achieve some sort of a balance in my life.
So you were here, right? Let's say, and here's the middle ground. How do you feel about going from here to over here?
Well, that's kind of what I'm trying
Because
to avoid because
because yeah, what you were doing was like a lot of effort towards that good feeling towards the short term. What I'm saying is
right.
like imagine just transferring directly however much effort was going on, or maybe more, whatever. And now, though, you're going for something that's meaningful happiness, meaningful experiences, same effort, right? In the middle, I get the appeal of the balance. I mean, it's
Yeah.
everyone's society, like achieve a balance, like this thing, that thing. How do you feel about that?
I mean, we've talked about it before. Um, I'd definitely like to try it at some point in my life. I'm not completely against it. But right now, I'm currently in the process of just trying to find that balance. I mean, I've I've found a decent amount of balance in my life where I'm currently, but I need to work on it a lot more to achieve true balance, right? To find that inner happiness. And then once I do that, perhaps then I'll chase another extreme in my life. But for me, my whole life experience has been very negative with extremes. It's never led to anything good. And yes, of course, my extremes were based around things that weren't necessarily positive or reinforcing any growth. I understand that. But still, yet again, any extreme for me, through my perception, is something that might not be something that's so good. Um,
I think like maybe I'm not like explaining myself well. Like this extreme that I have in mind, right? By its very nature, it's meant to make you a better person. If you as a person want a better balance in your life, you can achieve that because you as a person are achieving a higher level. Do you understand? So it's like I don't like the word extreme. What I'm saying here is like this obsession with becoming better, with growing as a person, blah, 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 blah. Everything that you want and you don't want will become easier because you as a person will evolve in that sense, right? So it's not to say like, hey, like for example, for you, it really think about it as this, like, what does the ideal version of Omar look like? That is what I'm talking about. The obsession for chasing after that specific guy. And if the ideal version of Omar, based on like, me knowing you, is like having a job, maybe having a company, being a leader in some position, but also having fun, working in cars, having good food, all these other things that I know that you like, that Omar will be able to do those at such a high level that, you know what I mean? Like that's a balance that you want, but it's an easier balance to achieve because you're at a higher level. Am I explaining
right.
myself?
Yeah, it's almost like you would have to pursue that well, you don't like the word extreme, but I'm gonna use it. But like you would have to pursue that extreme work ethic, that extreme uh I don't know what you would call it. I mean, you would
It's an
have to go all the
extreme,
way
yeah.
to the opposite side of the spectrum to then find the balance, as compared to trying to be on one side of the spectrum, go through the balance, and then achieve the other side of the spectrum. Essentially, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I think, yeah,
I get you.
it's a difficult thing to explain. That is the essence of it. It's just, I don't know, something different that I can't really materialize, I guess. But yeah,
That's fair.
for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. Um, yeah. Um, Now, in terms of like, is that something that I'm actually going to do or not? I mean, currently, like I said, I'm working on a balance.
Yeah,
Um, Everybody's different at the end of the day, you know, and I
sure.
find that to be true with everything that we talk about on the podcast. Some things apply to you, some things don't. I try my best, even when I feel like things don't apply to me, to still try to see, perhaps, well, in this case, obviously you, right? Because you're the person I'm talking to, like where you're coming from. But I try to, I guess, not attach the argument or not attach the thing or the topic that we're talking about directly to you, right? Which I think sometimes people have a difficult time doing. Like say like most people, you grow up, you're always you're having orders given to you by your parents, right? Although they might be very good things, because it's coming from your parent, you're like, no, I don't want to do it. You know, you get hard headed and you get in your feelings, whatever. So I try to not just completely remove that person from the argument and look at it solely for what it is that they're saying, right? What they're providing. So yeah, I could very much see that being true, being a possibility. Currently for me though, I can't quite say that I'm in line with that, but I'm willing to try it. You know, I'm willing to change my way of thinking and see in what way or form I could interpret that in my own life. It's interesting.
Yeah. It's really a weird thing. Like as like you were talking, and I was sort of thinking like, I used to be like that is the thing. Like, not that I'm not anymore, but I always liked that quote. I think it was from Socrates. Like, the true sign of intelligence is being able to maintain an idea without it becoming you. So, for example, I'm not religious. So if I talk to a religious person, I could have a good conversation with them and actually consider the things that they're talking about. Like, right, well, this is what God is. This is what he represents, so on and so forth, without me becoming religious through the process, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that I was also sort of considering is, this is something that Goggins has talked about in his book, is when you find some sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, perspective, I guess would be the easiest word to call it. And it's life-changing in the sense that everything else, like you lose that balance in a sense. Does that make sense? Like you don't want to see things in other ways anymore because this sort of perspective has given you so much. Does that make sense? That's something that like I'm starting to realize right now, because I used to be all for that, be all for the Omar thinks about this and my other friend thinks about this, and those are very valid points, so on and so forth. Now it's like with all due respect, I just can't sustain that. You know, I can't actually understand it because there's this other mindset or perspective, whatever you want to call it, that is so significant that I don't know. It's like I don't know. It's like it's taken over like my mind in a sense.
Yeah,
and it's odd. Honestly, I've never had something like this.
I can make sense of that. I think that happens when you start to truly identify yourself, or perhaps an ideology that you truly identify with, right? Like, say for me, I'm not set in stone. I haven't quite cemented like, oh, this is how I am going to be, right? Because I'm very much still allowing different ideas to come into my mind, right? Different people will tell me different things. I'm like, I could see how that's true. I could see the truth in that. Like, I could see how that could apply to my life, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost like I'm the window shopper, right? But perhaps you have actually found an ideology that you truly embrace because it truly identifies you, or it's become something that you want to become, right? It's like this idea is like, oh, fuck, I might not be 100% there, but I'd like to work towards that. That's something that fascinates me. It's something that's now become an obsession, right? That's like, that's who I need to be. I need to work towards that. I get that. I totally get that. Yeah. That makes sense to me. I haven't quite found that yet for myself, which is probably very, obvious, to the people that are listening. It's like, they kind of see me like all over the place, right? As I've said before, I tend to be very neutral on most things because I could see the both sides of things. Of course, there's still fundamentals that like, I'm like, okay, no, like that's bullshit, or no, don't do that. But for the most part, I'm very like fluid, right? I'm like, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could see that. Because I'm allowing any point of view, every point of view into my mind to see if it's something that I want to embrace or not. I haven't really quite gone to the point where I'm like canceling things out, or I'm like, no, like that's not good enough, because I haven't found the one ideology, or perhaps few ideologies, that I want to stick to. But I get that. That makes sense. I think, I mean, I don't know. Do you think at some point everybody reaches that point in their life where like they kind of just stick to a certain ideology or a certain point of view in life and they
No,
just double down on it? No,
I
right?
don't
Because
think so.
you change with time, right?
And here's the thing. I remember we would have conversations in high school and early college for me, where we would say, like, I feel like as when you're young, you start with like black and whites, like, oh, this is good, this is bad. Like, I like this toy, I don't like this toy. Very specific things, right? You keep going in that direction. iPhone over Android, whatever. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember we would talk about like we thought, and I know I certainly thought that as you would grow, those black and whites would become more grays, gradients of gray. And I
Mm-hmm.
still believe that up until recently, because now for me, things have become certain things, of course, have to be gradients, right? You can't just do like a yes or a no. But this, I don't know, way of life, I suppose, that I've adopted to me has become a black and white thing, in that I cannot see myself living my life in any other way. I just can't, because it wouldn't be my life. It literally, it's, it's impossible literally to visualize myself living a different type of life, because then in that sense, I wouldn't be visualizing myself. I would be visualizing someone else that's completely different. That's weird to me, because I was always under the impression that it would be gradients. You would grow
Mm-hmm.
older and you realize, well, actually, that's not exactly there. There's a compromise here. And it's fair. We have learned that. But again,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about, like, however it was that I came about like this sort of mindset, but it's like an unmovable sort of object. It's weird.
Yeah. I mean, perhaps it also depends on the type of person because I've met older folks, well into their 60s, 70s that they won't budge. Like, nope, this is the way my life is, and this is how it's going to be for the rest of my life until the day I die. And I've
Yeah.
met other people that are also around the same age range, and they can actually tolerate these new things that are happening in our everyday lives. Things that have come out of our generation, right? Things specific to the culture from our generation. I guess you could even tie it to like pop culture and other stuff that's happening nowadays. And they actually try to break those things down and interpret them and what's going on, to try to stay up with the times. So I think everybody's different at the end of the day. Um,
Yeah.
I tend to still think that there's for me, the way I see it, for the example that you're giving, it's like from when I was younger to now, all I see happening is like my spectrum, like my color spectrum is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There's like
Yeah.
new
The
shades being added.
gradients. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I see it.
No, that's fair. That's exactly, like, again, that makes 100% sense to me. That is exactly how I thought, which again is, and the reason why I'm talking about this, right? This is right in line with what we're talking about with excess. I think that excess of anything, slight exception, is bad, which is why I'm talking about this, because this is the only excess that I know for a fact that I have in my life. I don't buy excessive things. I buy what I need, maybe a little bit extra, sure. I don't. I travel. I want to travel more, but even then, I don't think I'll be traveling too much. I
What
work.
what do you buy in excess? I'm curious because I can't really
Not
imagine
really
you buying
excess.
anything in excess.
No, it's not really excess per se. Um, it's just, I just say excess in the sense that, like, compared to like a minimalist perspective of like buy only what you need. Like, I didn't
Mm,
need this sweater, right? I have other sweaters.
okay,
That's just what I mean about excess,
that's
not
fair.
actually excess. Everyone, in the States would be buying in excess. So those are the, like, I know that very well, that like I don't want to have excess in my life, and I want to achieve that balance, which is why,
Mm,
again, this idea of like, which is why I started with like the question of happiness, very fundamental thing. But then now going to like a mindset, can you have the access of a mindset, right? That's why I'm talking about this, because it's the only access I have in my life, and it's the only one that I would like to have in my life. I don't want to get rid of it either. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to. I'm here. I don't want to go to the middle. I don't want to go
I get you.
anywhere. I don't want to go like anywhere down there.
And see, this is why I love the podcast because we can have
Yeah.
amazing conversations like this, bring up great points, and it's all recorded. Because I swear to God, dude, when I would tell some of my friends about the conversations we have, like they would not believe me. They're like, bro, you're on crack. I'm like, no, dude, like we went through this whole like conversation where we're like basically saying like, yeah, this is true, and then at the end we're like, but
I don't know.
But
I really did not plan. I'm literally, I mean, and you know this, like every time I talk to Omar, and this is why I think we've been great friends. I mean, very many reasons, but every time we talk, I learn something new about myself, sometimes about you, but literally like as we talk, it's like, holy shit, I didn't realize that. Like 5 years ago, I said this one thing, and now I actually understand it. Remember that one thing our professor told us, like, that makes sense now. Or this thing, right? Where we're talking
we still
about
go back
excess.
to those things like from back in the day.
Now that we're talking about excess and we're 100% on the same page, like, hey, excess is bad. Find a balance somewhere in between, wherever works best for you. And then in the end, it's like, at least for me, it's like, I don't want an excess for this thing. I want like multiply it by a million, by like to the infinite scale. That is like, and I've just realized that and thought about that right now. Right. I've never really quantified or tried to think really thoroughly about this sort of mindset.
Yeah.
But yeah, 100% agree. This is why this is a great thing for our audience, but also for ourselves. I'm fucking thankful. That's, yeah, I found something out about myself today.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I think a constant theme throughout the podcast has also been that things aren't just black and white. We find the gradients, like you call it, right? And that's really exciting for me because, you know, sometimes you wake up and you're like, you have to go work, or damn, I have to do this, right? And it's like you're completely like in this trance. But then you get to the one day of the week, like for us, when we're recording, we're like, there's more to life. There's more out there. There's new avenues that I haven't explored. There's things that will keep me up at night that I can think about and openly express and openly talk about right now at this point in time. And now it's recorded. Now people know what we're talking about. Yeah. To conclude the podcast or this episode, I do think that most excesses are bad. They can lead you to a dark place. But in the correct circumstances, if you can apply an excess, it should be to be obsessed over something that's very important to you, whether it's your career, you know, a company, your own investments, because I think that will allow you to really, truly succeed in a whole nother level of your life that you don't even know is possible, right? I think that is how we conclude this podcast, and I'm happy with that.
I'm ecstatic with that. My mind is racing now. Yep.
Yeah.
Let's wrap it up.
We did it again, Juan.
We did it. Fucking did it.
Should I did it.
Drop the mic? No, not drop the mic.
Drop the mic. Give yourself a pat on the back.
Mamba out. It's Kobe. You do that another way.
Yeah, of course I did.
Okay. Just
I was gonna let that be the final word.
You stayed quiet for a second. No, we have our wow. I still like our wow. Go ahead, finish it up.
All right, fair enough. Shout out to the notorious B.I.G. Biggie Smalls. Our wow is as follows: more money, more problems.
Yes, indeed.
Baby.
You had to add that last one. All right. See you guys.